All right, let's see here. Yes, we are indeed live. How's it going, Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur family? This is Phil and Shay Bynes, your Chief Fire Igniter, and Phil is the new CEO of Kingdom Driven LLC. How's it going, Phil?
I'm well, love.
Okay, awesome.
You know how it be.
So we're gonna try something new and have some conversation. It's been a while since we've been doing live broadcasts on our Facebook page here, but we figured this will be really good to start going live again and just sharing and getting an opportunity to just really engage with those who are a part of the KDE family or those who may become part of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur family. So again, welcome. Kimberly's here. What's going on, Kimberly? It's good to see you.
You love what, Kimberly? What you love?
For those who are joining, let us know in the comments so that we can see who's here and we can greet you. But what we wanted to talk about today was a key, an important key, a kingdom key, we'll call it, for the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur who is going.
What? Can I give him a clue? Can I give him a clue?
I didn't even finish my sentence yet.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. For the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur who's going through transition. Okay, now, Phil, do you want to give them a clue?
Okay. I'm so in my spirit, even if it comes to tears, I'll worship you. Thank you, Father. Oh, sorry.
I didn't know we were going to do a concert.
No, it's not a concert. It's a cutting up.
Okay, so all right. So here's the thing: the important kingdom key in the midst of transition is worship, as Phil indicated. And when we talk about this, it's not just worship, like play a slow song and lift your hands. Although that is absolutely a really awesome part of worship is to do that, but it's really our heart posture. And I want to kind of talk about that a bit. Phil, I want you to share this from your experience and kind of, because you are in midst of transition. You started as CEO November 1st of last year. So you're just a few months in. I'm in the midst of transition because I was transitioning from this position into some things that God's revealing to me for the next season along on top of what I'm continuing to do with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. And both of us have found that worship is such a key part of the transition. So Phil, why don't you share just from your experience, kind of what you've been kind of working through with the Lord and the goodness of what worship has meant for you in the midst of transition?
Okay. Well, I'll start with this. I'm at my first week in office. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm like, okay, so Lord, what's next? What's next? I don't know. What am I doing? And what came in my spirit was worship. And then from there, he began to speak to me about, what worship looks like. We're just going to come to the Father. We're going to tell him that he's worth something to us. And so that's what worship is. To me, just reflecting back to the Father, his worth, his worthiness of anything that we want to do for him or give unto him. And so that's how my transition kicked off.
So basically you're a massage therapist. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. So it's a significant transition for you to go from doing massages for people to being in an office, sitting in front of a computer and being a CEO for a company where you're not using your hands a whole lot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's a completely different flow for you. And the first thing that you found to be a focus for you to help you with your day was to start with worship.
Yeah. He said worship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what does that look like? Because I know what worship looks like. I know it's multifaceted, but I didn't know what he meant in that moment. He was just like, just direct people's attention back to worshiping their creator, and all the things that come along with that.
Yeah. And so that turned into, Phil and several others on the team write for our rapid fire emails that go out for those who are connected to our community on kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com. And so he started just sharing on worship, even in those rapid fires. And it's funny, and people would think, well, what does that really have to do with business? But it has everything. It has everything to do with business. And I love the fact that the Lord gave you that as an instruction. Like, here's your to-do list today. It's to worship me. So I love that. Oh, we have some folks here. Katina's here and Candace is here and Leah's here. What's going on, you guys? So this has been really key for me too, Phil, because as I have been, I started a sabbatical right after, pretty much 2 weeks after you took the CEO position. And so I was on sabbatical for the whole rest of 2020. I thought during that time the Lord was going to speak to me a bit about, some of the things that I would be doing, since my days look a bit different, will look a bit different because I wouldn't be involved in the internals, for a kingdom driven entrepreneur. And so I thought he was going to talk to me about those things. He didn't. I came into the new year, and when he started talking to me and showing me things, I wasn't sure what to do, because what do you do when the thing God shows you, you don't see a path for? You're like, okay, that looks and sounds wonderful, Lord, but I don't see a path. I see what you're saying, but how do I get from here to there? Because I don't know the people for that. I don't even know a whole lot about the topic for that. And I'm like, I've been here before. I was here in 2012, starting Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, right? It was like, oh, wow, what are we doing here? And worship was such a key part then for us too. For Antonina and I, we were starting Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. We were the most praying and worshiping folks ever. And in the midst of our worship, he would give strategy, right? And so one of the things I've been walking through yet again, here we are again, is I'm like, okay, Lord, so what are we doing? So worship for me right now has looked like, even though he's shown me something and I don't see my way from here to there, I'm thanking him in advance. I'm praising him in advance for that. Lord, I thank you for what you are doing. And I'm asking him for his heart for the people that are associated with that. And I'm saying, Lord, I thank you for giving me your heart concerning these people. Lord, I thank you for that. Lord, I thank you that I'm just in this mode of gratitude over things I don't even really quite understand yet. So I'm already positioning myself in gratitude, positioning myself to thank him, right now for things that I don't understand yet, that I don't see yet, that I don't have clarity yet on. And that has been what worship has looked like for me right now. And it's also looked like when I go on my walks, sometimes it has been singing, sometimes it's been praying, and sometimes it's been just talking to God and just saying how awesome he is. I had something, what was interesting was, I don't know if this was last week, maybe it was a week prior, I was out for a walk because I'd had this kind of mind-blowing moment where I felt like God was giving me a peek into the next 10 plus years of my life. And that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I'd never experienced anything like that before. So I was like, okay, how are we getting from here to there? I'm not sure what we're doing. And all I did was I was pacing outside in the backyard, just kind of walking back and forth and just thanking God for who he is, just talking about how good he is and all of that. And while I'm doing that, which had nothing to do with business or anything like that, he just dropped like 2 sentences on me. That was it. And it was enough for me to take that one little thing and then go steward that one little thing and go do that. And when I did that, it opened up more for me. And I'm like, I've been down this path before.
Mm-hmm. As you're talking, one of the things that came out, a theme that came out, is when you worship, what you're doing is you're causing your heart to come closer to God's heart. And it helps your heart come into line with what God wants for you in that moment. And so that's good. That's why worship has to be that thing that he wants us to come to first, right?
Yeah.
If we come back to worship, we're repositioning our heart close to the Father's heart. It's almost like, I think I've heard someone say this before. It's almost like us getting to the point where we're so close to him that his heartbeat becomes our heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's like we begin to time up, our heartbeats time up. And so I think that's kind of what worship does for us. And that's why it's an important place to start.
Yeah, it is. But then going back to the whole music thing, that does help for some people too, including myself, right? Sometimes there's a song that's like, it is speaking to your now. It is speaking to your season. It is speaking to your future. And it's like an anthem for a season.
Mm-hmm.
I have those too. right? And sometimes it's just in the midst of just worshiping, with whatever that is for a season. I tend to have seasonal songs that might last for, 3 months, 4 months or something like that, right? But God really uses that as well. And it's been great. Now, Phil, you actually shared something about, in our rapid fire, I think it was about how the enemy, it was called Tag the Lord In. That was the name of the email. But you were talking about how the enemy often causes distraction and how it's so important for us to kind of shift back into that posture. You want to share about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can't tell you exactly what I shared because a lot of times I catch in the spirit and I release. But when I think about tagging the Lord back in, a lot of times, when we're focused on what the enemy doing, we're actually trying to fight those battles, right? And the scripture tells us that the battle is the Lord's,
Right.
And so when we just come to him and we worship and we reposition our minds, we reposition our hearts, we're tagging the Lord in. We're allowing him to do what he can do best. He can fight those battles for us. The battle was not ours in the first place, right? And so it's a way of allowing us to lay down our swords and picking up the sword of the Spirit, or picking up, letting him pick up the sword, right? And and letting him do the battle.
Yeah, and we've been talking about transition, but really this applies to our day-to-day as business owners. It applies to the day-to-day, when you have, because you just kind of reminded me of this, like when there might be a problem or a situation that you're facing, how our worship becomes a weapon per se, right? Our praise is a weapon in the midst of that. So as opposed to constant, because what worship does is, this is what reminded me, because you were talking about how it just brings our heart closer to him. It helps us to see him in the midst of, right? So as opposed to focusing on the problem and being so drawn into what the issue is, when we worship, we become solution focused because we are putting our eyes on the creator, on our ultimate CEO, on our chief anything officer, on the one who knows our end from the beginning, and heaven's wisdom and heaven's solutions.
Yeah, for sure. And as you're talking, what it reminded me of is like the story of Jericho. You know what I mean? Their worship was doing what the Lord instructed, them to do in that moment, to walk around, the city, walk around 7 times on the last day. And, you think about it, they had an encounter, or Joshua, right? It was Joshua. Yeah. Joshua had an encounter with the angel, and, and he was like, well, are you for us or are you for them? And he was like, I'm for neither. I'm here,
I'm here for the Lord's army.
Of the Lord's army. And because you were worshiping, basically, he put me on assignment here to do battle. He came with the sword and everything. He was armed up, right? So I'm sure Joshua was like, ooh, are you for us or are you for them? Let me get ready to do some battle, or let me pray or do something.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm here on assignment. And so, but that's an example of, God making sure, to take care of things for you. They didn't beat on any walls, they didn't have to do anything but, worship and praise, right? And then let out a shout, all the things, following instructions, and God did the work. So,
yeah, so good. I think Kimberly was saying, Kimberly says, I feel that I'm here again. So Kimberly's in the midst of transition. You guys listening, is anyone resonating with this for your season right now, where it's like, I'm in the midst of transition, God's showing me some things that look a little bit different from what I'm doing now? It was funny. I was actually on a Clubhouse chat the other day, and the conversation was about, what does she call it? Hybrid. I can't remember what she called it. It's hybrid something, but she was talking about how oftentimes God will give us something that is connected to what we were doing, but yet looks so different from what we were doing. And sometimes he's not even calling for us to let go of the other thing. This is my testimony for, not letting go of the other thing, but expanding into something else. And sometimes it can feel weird. She's like, what does this have to do with what I'm doing? Like, what does this have to do with all of this? And it can be tricky in that transition, right? But I'm finding myself running into more and more people where God's doing that, where it's not so much, sometimes the transition is, I am leaving this behind and I'm going to something new. But other times it is, I'm expanding on what I've already done within you. And so we are taking that and we are going somewhere else with it while you continue to hold things down there too, because I'm expanding. I'm not shifting, I'm expanding. So worship, key in the midst of that.
Yeah, as you're wrapping up, the next thing that I heard was like worship is like us getting that, how certain things have resonating frequencies. I think they call it resonant frequencies.
Resonant frequencies, yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're getting tuned up to the frequency that's in heaven.
Yeah.
Right. When we worship, it causes our hearts, it causes our minds, it causes our spirits to get aligned with whatever the word that I said earlier whatever's resonating in heaven.
Yes.
We resonate on that same frequency, on that same vibration in that moment. And that's what worship does for us. That's why it can take us out of a slump or, a grumpiness or whatever, right? Because we're just recalibrating basically with what heaven is doing in the moment.
Yeah, that's good. Lee says, we are in a place of transition. Not sure of how we will get to the place he wants us to, but know that he's faithful. His will, his bill. That is for sure. His will, his bill. It's funny. I was having a conversation with actually Lee about this because he was talking about transition. And I've had a number of people reach out to me and ask me to share about some of our testimony from our transition, because we went through like a 2.5 year season of a whole lot of transition. And it was not easy, but it was definitely full of his grace and his favor, but it was not easy. And I have shared that episode. So if you guys need some encouragement, like if you're in a hard spot and you want some encouragement, there is an episode in the podcast. It is called Mentoring Moment, God in the Midst of the Details. I'll actually make sure that I add a link to in this chat stream to it. I have people contact me on a regular basis about that episode, and people who say, I have listened to this thing over and over and over and over again, because it is encouragement in the midst of transition, because the focus is on, as long as I can see God, I'm cool. As long as I'm connected to what God's doing, it's all good. As long as I can stay connected to the heart of the Father, I'm good. Right? In the midst of all the stuff going on around. Anything else, Mr. Bynes?
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it reminded me, I wonder if that's the episode where we shared a little bit about, or where you shared a little bit about sending out Judah first.
Oh, it was that whole testimony. Yeah. I went from beginning to end, when we had to short sell our house.
Yeah.
With Judah that showed up at the courthouse, all the way through to living at your brother-in-law's house while I was pregnant.
Oh, Lee put it in the comments, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Lee. So this link that Lee Bradshaw put in the comments, that's the episode we're talking about. Yes, I told all our business, basically. Not even intentionally. I meant to only tell part of our business, but when I tell you, the Lord just kept, I was like, woo, okay, I didn't mean to say this, but I didn't mean to say this, but I told the whole story.
But it's
been an encouragement. That was years ago, and it's been it still is an encouragement to people now.
Yeah, it's like that's like we've heard, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
That's
so God causes us to share those type of things so that people realize that he can do it again, right?
Yeah.
And when you go through the most tough, some of the toughest seasons, when you put the praise forward and if you put worship before everything else, it's like what Paul says, these afflictions, these are light afflictions. Yeah, right. It becomes like that. And some people look at you and be like, well, how could you go through this? Oh, things are rough. I'm like, no, it's not that rough. It's okay. You can see the positive even in the midst of it, because you can feel God's presence all around you. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Like the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace that came out and didn't even smell like smoke. Oh, that's good stuff. Anybody else before we hop off? We've got some folks live here today. Any questions or comments or anything on this topic that you wanted to discuss? We have a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we purpose to be on here for about 10
a half hour.
Minutes. So,
so we've got 10 minutes if you want it. But if not, if there's nothing else on your minds, we'll yes, praise in the storm, Linda said. Yep. Absolutely. It really is a difference maker. And I often, it's so funny because some of these things, it's like they're simple in concept, but we forget them. We forget to do them. And yet they're some of the most powerful keys to keep us with heaven's perspective in the midst of all the stuff, even and then not even just the hard stuff, the good stuff. That when things are going really well, when things can be overwhelming on the good side. There's the overwhelm you get because things are really complicated and they're hard. And then there's the wow, you're there's just a whole lot going on and it's all good, no complaints, but it can still be overwhelming if you're trying to do it in your own strength, right?
Yeah, it's a thing that we need to keep us grounded, keep us connected, with God. Because in worship, He wants to share His secrets with us.
Yes.
It's like if I come to you, love, and I'm like, "Oh, you're so beautiful today. I just like being around you," and all of a sudden, your heart opens up to me, right? And you
it's opening up right now.
Yeah. What you saying to me? What you saying to me? What you want? You better be careful. You might get it. Well, God's the same way. You better be careful. You loving on me. You can't outgive me. I'm the number one giver. That's how the Lord is. So yeah.
So
it's
good.
a good place to be.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, you guys. So we're going to try to kind of keep a consistent time and come and hang out on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern. That's our intent. We have some family dynamic stuff we're working through. And if we can work all of those things out, we will consistently be here on Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern from about 12 to 12:30. You guys, if you're connected and you're watching this right now and you have not connected with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, please head over to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com. You can get connected to all of our resources. We have a podcast that's every week, drops every Wednesday. We have for those who really want to get connected with this idea of what it's like to do business in partnership with God, we recommend as a starting point our Firestarter School. It's available at the price of your own choice. And that's literally, at the price of your own choice. And that's at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/Firestarter School. And that just gives you a few hours of just mentoring and teaching to just kind of wrap your mind and your heart and your spirit around what it's like to not just do business for the glory of God, but to do it with the presence of God and have a greater kingdom impact through the work that you do. So you can go over to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/Firestarter School for that. And just kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com just to get connected to all the resources that we have. And Linda, I'm so glad that you are enjoying the podcast. So Phil, before we hop off, any closing words from you, sir?
I was thinking about don't neglect worshiping with others as well.
That's good.
Whatever that looks like. You know what I mean? It could be the singing, it could be just, dancing, it could be whatever, right?
It could be conversation.
In conversation. But when you do it together, it's just like, like we become braided together in the spirit with God. You're just inviting other people to be braided together at the same time. So that popped in my mind because that's
good.
Corporate worship is an important thing, especially if you're looking to move together with someone, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be on one accord, that's an awesome way to get on one accord. Go before the Lord together in worship. Yeah.
I've had lots of Voxer worship.
Can you share some of your Voxer?
No.
Why you mention it then?
Oh, just to make the point, to reiterate the point. Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. You all have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of your week. We'll look forward to hanging out with you guys again on Facebook Live. And we love you and take care.
Deuces. See ya.